And so I thought, okay, I want to know if God knows where God came from. Like, that's a question I would ask God. At the time, that was the biggest question I could think that I'd ask God. God, have you ever thought about where you came from? And if you know where you came from, where is that? And if you came from yourself, how did you do it? Right? That would be something that would be interesting to me to know. Would I stump God? Would God be like, that's a hard one? Or would he be like, oh, easy? Right. And so I wanted to know the answer. And I just thought I'll do that and I'll see how if any answers come, right? I don't know how they would show themselves. Would it be like I'd wake up and there'd be like a scribble on a piece of paper with an answer, like God came and wrote it on a piece of paper? Would it be some dream I have? Would it be something that happens when I leave the house type deal? I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So I just thought to do it. Why not? And so I asked God that question, God, you know where you came from, right? And I laid back on my bed, like I just thought I'm gonna think about that, lay back on the bed. And as soon as my head hit the back of the bed when I laid down, it was like if you're in school, like I think school, but at a meeting or something, and you have slide projector, and it's projecting onto either a wall or the pull down screen, and you have like that kind of white hazy light with the rounded corners if there's no slide in there yet. It was kind of like in the darkness of my mind in like the distance a little bit because it just kind of seemed like distance. There was like that type of glow, right? And it was like these words came across that light and I could see it and they stopped in the light. They like went from like if you think of your mind, like you think of something, right? It's almost like you see it like a movie screen, right? You don't see the edges, but you kind of imagine it's within a certain parameter or boundary. And it was like out of vision and it moved in vision, these three words, right? And they said God, heaven, and origin, right? Now that would seem likely because I'm thinking, what's God's like beginning point, right? Where did you come from, God? Things like that. But I could tell that it wasn't something I was trying to make happen. It was just something that autonomously appeared in my mind and floated across like my mental eye, right? And saw on the screen, right? And so, because, my technology here is pretty low at the moment, um, it basically were the words God. I'm going to cover up the bottom word here for a second, but it basically looked like this, just linear, stacked, letters upon each other going horizontally across and God, heaven, and origin. And I'm like, oh, okay, because it felt autonomous, like it wasn't me doing it. I'm like, what do I do with that? That's like it was like a vision in my mind to me, right? And now I'm excited. So I'm like, if I can let it just melt away and be like, wow, man, some words just hit my mind. It was a vision. I should go tell millions of people. No, I'm like, I'm going to write that down. I don't know why. I don't know why I want to write that down, but I do, right? And so I'm like, that's the first thing I saw. That's what I'm writing. So I wrote it down on a piece of paper at that time, like in a spiral notebook. And I wrote down God, heaven, origin. And I'm like, and those words were aligned. Like the first letter, like this, like the first letter and the first word, like of God, they're all aligned, right? And so I'm like, it's like a stack of letters, like a matrix of letters. That's interesting. Okay. The word answer, which, because I didn't cover it up that time, you can see wasn't part of the vision, but I'll explain that in a second. So I wrote these down and I'm looking at them. And in my mind, I flipped a couple things. I'm like, maybe it's not origin. Maybe it's beginning. Maybe it's Genesis. Maybe it's, and my mind did that. I'm like, origin, 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 stay with origin, right? Like you might think of something and it's like you start to flip the numbers and stuff and you walk away like, what was that phone number? It's like 4109 4912. Like, that's kind of what my mind was doing. And it was like, oh, I'm getting away from it. I need to go back. I need to go back to the word origin. So I kept the word origin. I looked at the letters and I thought, well, what do I do with this? Right? I got this matrix of letters. Okay. I don't understand. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do anything with letters, it's to spell words. Right. And so I'm like, okay, well, maybe I need to connect these letters. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to do with this matrix of letters. I got words that are linear in rows, right? God have an origin, but maybe I'm supposed to do something else with them. Like, and the only thing I could think, except just, be like, oh, I got three words, would be to connect the letters to make other words, because there was nothing else to do with them, right? And so this is where my journey with breaking into the matrix at, this type of, code formation began. And the rules started to develop at this moment when I wrote it down. And everything I'm telling you happened in about 20 minutes. It wasn't like I sat back and thought about it the next day and went and talked to some, professor at a college the following day. No, it was like bang. It was like my mind was popping and just doing things one right after another. And so I'm like, all right, I'm going to connect these letters. And so I started connecting the letters like you would do like a word search, like diagonally, and crossing over letters that were already used and horizontally and vertically. And then I started realizing when I was doing that, I had leftover letters, right? Because I couldn't use all the letters to spell words. And I'm like, okay, well, if there's something here, I have leftover letters, and let's say I was trying to explain it to you, and show you, oh, I got this matrix of words and they were from a vision, but now I got all these leftover letters. You'd be like, well, you can make any word you want with these letters. You have all these leftover letters. Why do you have leftover letters? Why wouldn't they be used? Right? So I'm like, I don't want it to be a method where it's just like, well, I see that here and you have to believe it because I see it. Don't worry about the stuff that I didn't use. So I'm like, okay, first rule, right? I can't have leftover letters. So if there's something within this matrix of letters, which at that time was just God, heaven, origin, if there's something here, I have to use all the letters, right? Okay, and so that was my first rule. And then as I went back and I said, okay, and I started like searching through this matrix of letters and, doing diagonal things, I realized when you do a diagonal like connection, like let's say, it's not going to be a word, but let's just say I do diagonally G, E, I, and W, right? It leaves a trap of these letters here, which may not spell a word. Or if I just do, let's say, the O and the N for the word on or no, and that leaves like the A. That's fine, that's a word. But if I do like over here, and let's say this was a word and I cross, I'm left over with the letter R. And I started realizing, well, with diagonal connections, it leaves a bunch of weird spaces and letters left over that can't be used. So I'm like, okay, I'll reduce the ways that I can connect the letters, right? I'll take away diagonal connections and make it so I can only connect letters horizontally and vertically. So let's say, for example, I can connect the letter G to the letter O to make the word go, right? Or let's say I connect the letter A and the letter D, and that would be vertically to make the word add, right? But I could also say, let's take the letter G, the letter O, and the letter E, and connect those in a box and say, let's say it says ego. But the G and E are diagonal, but that's fine because their E is connected to the O vertically, while G is connected to the O horizontally. Okay, so that was the next rule was, okay, besides no leftover letters, I can only connect things horizontally and vertically, which should reduce the amount of words I can make, right? I'm making it harder for myself to make words now. Now, because no letters can be left over, I have to use every single letter. So the idea that, well, you can make any word you want still is not true, because if I wanted to make the word zoo, let's say, I can't because there's no letter Z, right? And if let's say I make the word go, and I take those two out, I'm left over with only these letters to make connections with. So I can't just make any word I want, because at some point, let's say I can get this whole grid right here to make words, I might not be able to make enough words here, and I'll have leftover letters. So that necessitates I have to go back and figure out why I have leftover letters and reconnect them to make it sure that when I get back over here, there's no leftover letters. Okay? So it's not just doing what you want. Now, the next rule I made, and I thought, okay, once the letter is used, right? In a word, to make a word, it can't be used again. So let's say you make the word go, right? You can't say, well, I'm going to use the word go to make the word ego now. No, you already made it to make the word go, so you can't use these letters again. They basically disappear. Okay? So now it's that it reduces the chances that you can use every letter to make words and use all the letters within that matrix. Okay? Because you can't use the same letter twice to get out of a funk, per se. All right. And then once you have, and these rules developed over like 20 minutes, basically. Then the next rule is once you have all the words made, okay, or you connect all the letters to make words, right? You have to take the words out of the matrix because somebody could say, well, okay, you made a bunch of words and all the letters connected and, good for you. But what does that mean when you take out those words? Well, if I was to take out the words and say, let's say there was a word made here and a word made here and a word made here. And I said, well, I'm going to take this one, I'll put it as the first word in the sentence. Take this one, I'll put it as the second because it makes sense to me. Nope, once you make these words and connect the letters, the words have to come out from top left to bottom right. So if the word go is made, the word go has to come out first, and then you move to the letter D. Whatever word you make with the letter D, that's a second word, okay? And once you string these words out into a series of words, then you only can add punctuation to show how this phrase or sentence is meaningful. So that reduces the chance that you'll have something sensible in the end. And I'll define sensible and how I'm using it. Okay, so let's say I was to code break that and it came out to be, boy flies kite, grass, mountain top, right? It's like, okay, well, somebody could sit back and be like, wow, man, you got words. It's like, this boy's flying a kite by a mountaintop and there's green grass and maybe there's an antelope running by, It's like, no, it has to be sensible in itself. You shouldn't have to add in much to make it make sense. An average person, if they understand what the words mean based on the definitions of the word, should be able to look at it and be like, oh, okay, it's telling me about something. It isn't telling me something about something else, right? And then the answer, right, has to somehow be meaningful with the words within the code or words within the matrix. This is a little bit more, getting into kind of, you need to see like 2 or 3 or 4 of them to understand what's being talked about. I'll try to briefly say it when I get done with showing you how this matrix is, what it turns into, what the message is or the solution. Okay, I'm not trying to dodge anything. I'm just trying not to go too far too fast. I'm just trying to show you the basic code structure, the basic way to break the decode, okay? So I had God, heaven, origin written down. I developed these rules by code breaking. As I was doing that, I'm like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like intuition, I guess, because all this became part from a vision, I guess. It was just, I thought, God, heaven, origin. What is it that I'm trying to do with the God, heaven, and the origin? And I saw it as a question in my mind, like if I read these words down, like the God, which God? God of heaven. What do I want to know about the God of heaven? I want to know God of heaven's origin. What about God of heaven's origin? What do I want? I want to know the answer, right? And so I'm like, when I was doing it, I'm not in that mind frame now that I was then 23 years ago. But I remember thinking I need to put another word here because it's like almost like I knew that like I wanted to do more after this if it worked. I just felt that. And I'm like, but there's got to be something that's similar. Like in it, like when you do a math problem and you put the line at the bottom, right? You have 8 plus 7 plus 6 line, right? And that line is basically like we're done with the math problem. Now the answer goes below, right? That line is kind of the symbol to say answer. And so I did the same thing with this. And I thought, I'm putting the word answer there, okay? and I was code breaking. I think I needed a letter or something to make it make sense. I know that's kind of like grabbing for something that's not there to make it make sense, but all of this was like that anyway, right? Coming from nowhere. And so I'm like, yep, I need to connect. I need and then it was just like, I need to put the word answer there. And each one of these I have in the future, that's the best way I can say it. I thought it's going to have the word answer there because that's what I'm seeking for. What is it that I want to know about it? I want to know the answer. And so that's where the word answer came from in a flash, like when I was doing this. And then I'm like, okay, I need to sit back and now code break it according to these rules. And if something comes of this, right? Maybe there's something there. Maybe God like made reality down to the letter level, right? Like it isn't like, oh, he came up with the plan, it was hazy and cloudy, and he's like, kind of a plan, kind of try to do something, kind of try to make something work. And that it was just like, I'll make words and letters and numbers and all these concepts, but I have no idea what the hell they're going to be used for. Just hope something good happens for my plan. Maybe he was very, and I thought it didn't seem right. It seems like if there's somebody making a plan and they're supernatural and they can make people and they can make something happen that they want to, they're not going to leave it up to randomness, because why would they take billions of years and be like, oh, I'll just leave it up to randomness, see if it works. It seemed, I thought, probably down to the letter level, right? And so I'm like, all right, let me try this connection thing, right? And I'm going to be very specific and go through each part that I did and actually show you how the words connect, right? Okay, so I had this on a piece of paper back in the year like 2000, 2001, somewhere around there, maybe 2002. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, after I tried some letters and connecting, I came up with the rules. Then I noticed the first word I saw was right at the beginning, was the word go. And so I boxed it in. I don't remember how I did, if I connected it just by making a little dash through it. But for right now, I'm going to box it in. If you can see, I made a little pen line. So you have the word go, right? And I wrote that down. Now, at the time when I wrote it down, I didn't already have the rule from taking words out top, left, to bottom, right. I just thought I'm going to make words and write the words down on a piece of paper. And then I'm like, wait a second. No, they have to come out top, left, to bottom, right every single time. Or else somebody will be like, oh, you're just taking words out, making up a story how you want. Like, no, I'm letting this way the story tell itself. Okay? So I took out the word go. Okay? Now, I'm not going to go in order because I want to show you what happened to me at the time. So the next word I saw was he, H-E, and I boxed it in. Okay? And I wrote it down just like I wrote it down here. Just go and he. Okay? So the word go, the word he. Okay? I'm like, okay, if I go back down and I see another word, or. And it was like, leading me based on the simplicity where the letters were and the words being formed, right? It was just like, oh, the word go right there, the word he, the word or. Okay? I was left over with these letters. I'm like, now, but I didn't have, okay, so at the beginning of this episode, I said I didn't have a computer. It was like 56K modem back then, It wasn't this big processing unit in my little bedroom that I rented out for $80 a month. It was just my mind thinking with a pencil and a piece of paper at the time. It wasn't a pen, it was a pencil. Okay? And so I didn't have a computer program to plug in letters that were going to give me 5 million different choices. I don't think there was like an anagram creator online yet or anything like that where you could just plug in letters and it comes up with words. And I didn't know what letters to use anyway. I was just like looking at this thing with my eyes, holding a pen and looking at paper and some letters. Okay. So I don't remember exactly the next word I saw. And I probably tried like 3 or 4 different things to see what was going on here and got trapped when I got like to these 2-letter N's and the R. Because once you start getting away from vowels, you can't make words. So you have to use the vowels in a way that connects to the letters and then leaves vowels left over for other letters, or else you're trapped because you won't be able to make any words. I should say this. You can't be like, well, I have the letter R and the letter N. It must be RN registered nurse. No, there's no but there's no abbreviations, right? Okay. And I'm trying to think of, the word. I know what it is, but anyway, there's no like words like FB or acronyms. There's no words like FBI, DSG for initials or whatever it might be. It has to be words that are like nouns, pronouns, proper nouns, verbs, adverbs, adjectives, words that are commonly used. Okay, so that reduces the amount of words you can make too. You can't be like, well, I'm trapped with two N's. The NN means Nancy Naharbabom or like some friend you know. You can't do that. It's got to be words. Okay, so you got go, he, and or. Now the next one I'm going to show you. I don't remember if this is the next word I found necessarily. I'm guessing it probably is based on the formation of the letters and on the. But okay. So I boxed in, let's say, the G, the I, the S, the N, and the A. And I saw it as the word gains. Gains. So when you come to, because if you look at go, he, and or, they're in order. Go, he, or. When I came to this, I'm like, okay, I can take a group of letters and put them down and then take those letters and rearrange them because it's ambiguous. I got 5 letters. Those 5 letters might spell 3 different words, right? I'm not saying these do, but you could take the word gains and maybe spell another word with it. So it's almost like it becomes subjective at that time. I'll give it that. But at the same time, it would be like, let's say I gave you 3 numbers and they were 8, 3, and 1. Well, you can add them together. You can subtract them. You can put an addition to one part of the problem and a subtraction to the other part of the problem. And nobody's going to be like, well, you can't do that. You're using numbers the wrong way. No, that's how you use numbers, right? For math problems. So in this sense, for my study orthotics with letters, right, you can take a group of letters and then box them, use them, and then switch them to make the word, okay? Because they're not taken out in order like I-G-A-N-S, right? They're taken out as G-A-I. It's taken out that way, but then it's spelled gains, okay? And then I was left with like these letters here. And I was really stumped because of the N and the N. But then after looking at it, I don't know, trying a few different things, trying different words, seeing that I was left over with letters and things like that, I came up, or I found the word winner, W-I-N-N-E-R, in this group of letters. And as you see again, I'm connecting letters only left and right or up and down. And only diagonally connections are made because they share a letter that's either horizontally connected to or vertically connected to. Same here. Everything's either horizontally and vertically connected. Okay? But not just diagonally, because you can't do that. And every word is using a letter. It's the letter's only once, right? No word is sharing a letter that another word is using. Okay, so I was left over with these 4 letters. Now, my name is David. So one might think that they would see their own name here, D-A-V-E, right? For Dave, which is the shortened term of my name. Hey, Dave, people know that, right? They call David Dave all the time. Some people call me Dave all the time. You would think I would notice that, but I didn't. I struggled with these 4 letters. I'm like, I don't know. And the only thing I could come up with, and all I had at the time was my hard, like the book, the actual book, right? The hardcover Webster's Unabridged Dictionary from like 1992. I don't know. Something like that. Pretty thick book. So I flipped through it and looked through the letter E's, looked through EVAD. I didn't have a way to anagrammatize things online or anything like that. So I'm looking through the dictionary. I'm like, I don't get it. The only thing that I see here, and that I kind of knew about it anyway from school, was not deep knowledge, just knew the word, was the word Veda, V-E-D-A. And it's like part of Indian mythology per se. Okay, it's like the Mahabharata, the Veda scripts, and different things like that. And their teachings about, like how to be successful or something like that. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe there's just nothing with this. I mean, what would the word Veda have to do with any of this? I mean, the gains, the winner, these go, he, okay. But Veda, maybe. And I plugged it in there and I tried it, right? And I said, okay, I have to take, I'll box it in. And I have to take it from top, the words out from top left to bottom right. So the first word would be go. Now I'm going to switch pieces of paper here. Only for the fact I have wrote down the answer on this one. So this at first was Veda, not my name, right? So it was go Veda. When I took them out, go, and then I hit the D, make Veda. then I came down the word he, and I went across and then hit the end, because you can't use the same word twice. So once it's used, you can kind of think of like a video game. You hit it and it disappears, and then you're left with the other letters that you can use. And then I have the word winner, right? And then the word or, and then as I hit this, I hit the I for gains, and then all the letters were used and all the words were formed. So I had go, Veda, he, winner, or gains. I'm like, okay, maybe kind of like this Indian like script thing, and I'm supposed to go read the Veda. Maybe it's an instruction, because everything else made sense, right? And I was looking at him like, I don't know, maybe it's just nothing here. That was fun. It was a fun little thing, a little journey that I went through, and I'm like, what? And then it was, I don't know how to explain. I mean, I can feel the chills and the goosebumps when I'm telling you. Like tears, like my eyes right now are starting to like get like water in them, because it's like, it was profound what I felt. And I'm going to try to explain it the best I can in words. But I looked at it and I saw my name. I'm like, wait a second. My name is here, Dave. It's like in order, like the word go, he, and or. I'm like, it's right there. I'm like, and in that moment that I realized it, it was like, so when you see that painting of like God's finger and the human's finger, and people think it's Michelangelo, I think, or something like that, but it's not. I forget the guy's name, and it's something with a B. It's like a Italian name, and it shows I'm touching the finger. It was like in my mind, the best way I can describe it is like in my soul, right? But I could see it in my mind. When I realized that, it was like a compression. It was like if God's mind was here and my mind was here, it was almost like shoo, like that. And it was like this spark, almost like you have sparklers, right? And you're, playing with them. It was almost like somebody welded something, like, and the sparks flew. Like, not like for minutes on end. It was just like that feeling. And it was like, I felt it, like almost like a magnetic feel, like an energy or something. And it was like in my mind, I just saw like these sparks fly, kind of like that, like this orangish reddish thing happened. And it was almost like I felt it, not like painful or shock, but it was just like, I don't know how to explain it. I mean, I can explain in words with image and in that way, but that's what I felt when I saw my name, right? In the code, because when I saw that, I understood the message too at the same time. And my question was, what's God of Heaven's origin? What's the answer, right? And so when I took out the words in order, I added punctuation, right? Because all I did was see the words. I'm like, add some punctuation. It makes sense to other people. And it was go Dave, like go team, like keep going, right? Go Dave, he, winner or gains, right? And I'm like, I looked at them like, my first initial reaction was like, that's a message to me. I can take that as a message to me. Why can I take that as a message to me, right? Before I should say, I can take it as a message to me, I should ask, why should I? And I'm like, okay, I asked me, my name's David. I am the one who asked that question, that received that vision, and that wrote it down and did the code breaking. It didn't say, go Joe, go Jake, go Sylvia, and talking about somebody else. It used my name in this answer. And that, to me, I mean, somebody else might say, oh yeah, you already knew your name was in there and stuff, so you built this code around. Like, no, I'm telling you, I can just tell you my experience and the truth. I have no reason to make it up. Because if somebody was to say that, I could say, well, yeah, let's say I just decided to use these words for some reason. I knew my name would be in there, and then built up all these words around it. I didn't make up these words. God had an origin answer. So I would have to know I could stack these and then create a code that made sense in the end based on where these letters were. I mean, it would make more sense just to say, to tell you the truth and be like, these are the steps I went through and that's how I got there. I didn't have some computer program going through millions of words to find my name. Nothing like that. It was just my human brain, my pen, a pencil, and a moment, right? Okay, so when it said go Dave, he, winner, or gains, and I looked at the structure of that over time, I can't say I looked at it right then because it just made sense. It wasn't like I was fitting in a story to it. It just said go Dave, he, winner, or gains. And the way I took it to mean was like, keep asking those questions, Dave. and you might find the answer you're looking for. Keep going down that trail. Keep looking into this code. If you stop now, what do you have? Nothing. You have this and that's it, right? So what I did was I said, okay, let me look at this, because I did some other ones. My next one was, okay, well, how about devil and hell origin answer? How about if I take the word God, flip it into like its opposite and make it devil? I take heaven and I flip it and I make it into hell, and I leave the origin and the answer as constants. Like math has constant numbers. What about if I have constant words in these query stacks? So the query stacks that I have in this book, Reality Storyline Decoded, all have, and in the back I have some, I don't know how easy that is to read, but they all say origin and answer at the bottom, okay? And that's the constant words that have to be used, okay? And so I said, okay, and then I said, okay, well, how about Dave Earth origin answer? And I use the word Dave because it was already used in the code as Dave, not David. So I said Dave Earth origin answer, or Jesus Earth origin answer, right? And I started testing these different ones following the trail based on, similarities of names, or is explained in the book, and basically came up with 20 of them that follow these same rules. But I also said there's rules to the answer, because I started realizing these answers all follow a certain pattern. And I wrote this down because I can't remember the name. I basically came up with an equation, which on the back of the book is listed right here in between my fingers, right? It's hard to read, but it's talked about in the book. And I call that the 7 common query stack answer properties formula, because all of these answers have 7 properties that are the same, okay? And they're very specific. The first property is the first phrase can only have 2 words, okay? It can't have 1. It has to have 2 words, and it can't have 3 or more, only 2. And those 2 words have to introduce the subject talked about in the 2 phrases, because each answer has to have 2 phrases, not just 2 words in the first phrase. It can only have 2 phrases. It can't be 1 phrase. It can't be 3 phrases or more. Only 2 phrases, and it has to have the information locked in those 2 phrases. Okay, and it has to use all the words, right, in the order that they're taken out in. So you have 2 words. It introduces the subject Dave, right? Now, the third property is the second word in the first phrase, in this instance, my name Dave, has to equate with the first word in the second phrase. So it has to be synonymous, something similar as you think with, stuff like that, right? It has to have some type of synonymity with it. It can't just be like, oh, the last word here is pig and this is, Mars. You can't do that. And so what that does is it ties the first phrase to the second phrase, right? And it conglomerates the meaning based on the words. It's like a poem. And let's say a word repeats in a poem, like it's talking about a red rose, and then it talks about, the red flower. It doesn't use the word rose, but it uses flower. But because it's talking about a rose, it's talking about the flowers, the rose, right? So kind of like that. And so these 2 words have to make sense with each other, and you do, because I'm a boy, right? He. It's not go Dave she, it's go Dave he. And then I'm not going to go through all the 7 properties, okay, because it's not necessary for this episode, basically, but to show you what I'm trying to show you. But there's 7 properties, and they're all very specific. And in the second phrase, right, and this happens a lot with the answers, like you can see this as synonyms to say, hey, I'm talking about Dave, and I'm still talking about Dave, because I'm using a word that tells you I'm still talking about Dave with the word he, right? As if the author wrote it that way. So it wasn't like, oh, we're talking about Dave, and then we're talking about what? Like a sandstorm on the Sahara Desert in 1947. Like it keeps the information together. And if you can look here, this happens a lot too, where it says like synonyms within the phrase, winner or gains, right? So when you win something, you gain something, right? I'm going to win something. It usually means you're going to gain something, right? Knowledge, a trophy, something physical, an emotion, whatever it is, right? So it uses synonyms within the phrase also, right? So somebody could say, oh, it's saying you're a winner, right? But okay. But it also says or, meaning, or I mean this, gains, right? Now it's kind of saying it's self-defining itself. It's like the author saying, you can consider this to be BS, but how can you explain it to how can you explain the fact that it uses words to kind of define the phrase itself and kind of redundantly to make sure you understand that this is what I mean, right? It's not just like using words one time and not connecting them. It's more like a poem, I guess, in that sense. They're rhymes. Okay. And so, yeah, so this was the first query stack that I had done. I saw it from a vision in my mind, which I'm telling you wasn't placed there by me. I get it in the event that I went through. It seems like I could have done that myself, but I'm telling you, just like these words are floating across the screen sometimes up here, it was like that. Now, I programmed that, of course, right? But they just went across the screen. Right? It's not like I'm taking them right now and grabbing them. I did at one time, but not at the moment. So that's how it was for me. And so I followed that trail and I acted like it was a message. And I said, I can act like it's a message, or I can just say, no, it's nothing. It seems to be a message. What a coincidence. I'm not going to tell anybody about it because it's weird. I don't want them to think I'm crazy. And I'm not going to go on with this. Right? And I could have left it behind, but I decided, like I said, I wrote one for Devil Hell origin answer. I did one for Jesus Earth origin answer. I plugged my own name in there, gave Earth origin answer. And every time you do that, or every time I did that, it came out to be a phrase or two phrases that went together that followed these rules and that end up telling you information about God. Okay. And it corroborates information you find in the Bible. So it's not like, it's going to tell you about God, and then it's going to tell you stuff like antithetic to what's in the Bible. Okay, so people are, if you're somebody who has faith in the Bible, and you're like, yo, the Bible tells me everything that I need to know about God. Understanding something new isn't going to negate what you already know, right? It's only going to teach you something else, and from a different perspective, in a different way. Because God didn't just write a Bible and walk away. He created a world too. You go out and you walk in the world and you see things and you might make that make sense with God. You might not talk about it in the Bible. Okay? So the Matrix is the same thing. God made a setting, our physical environment, and he made a storyline, which is based on the alphabet. Like you read a book, words and letters. Okay? Setting is numbers, measurements, science, mathematics. Orthotics, my study, is letters, okay, using letters in the way that I showed you to understand the Matrix. Now, some people are fine with thinking like the Matrix is a movie with Keanu Reeves and wow, it's like this, or hearing somebody from Yale or whatever tell you about some simulation, man. It's like, this is specific Matrix. The Matrix, you can think of it like a computer code. When you go to play a computer game, you're just fine with playing the game, right? With your stick or computer pro or your keyboard, whatever, and you don't question it. You know there's something running that in the background, right? It isn't just there for you out of magic, right? It's based on numbers, letters, symbols, and whatever C++ programming language or Python programming language, whatever it is you don't know about, right? And if you're not a computer program, it makes no sense to you. Now I'm showing you the Matrix, which is a computer program per se that God had put to make reality work. Okay. And it's plainly written so you can see it work, right? It's not symbols and what the hell is going on here and complex this. It's somewhat complex, but when you see it, you're like, oh, that's freaking simple. Like what I showed you, for the first query stack is very simple, right? There's some complexity to it. There's intricacy, and you're not going to just find it. And that's one thing I should say about this too. Like if you were Mario in the game Mario Brothers and you're just jumping on this pipe all the time and jumping over it, and you were talking in a language, right, to another character, you would just keep jumping over it but one day, let's say you're walking, something happens in intuition and there's like something on the pipe you notice different, a bump or something, like, what the hell is that? And you go to the bump and you peel it down, and when you peel it down, you see the language that the pipe is written in, the computer game code, right? And you realize, wow, those are the same letters and numbers that I used to talk with, but I never talked and worked with them that way, right? It's kind of like that. You just have to know how to adjust them, right, in a certain way. And it's not just a one-time event. Now Mario goes to the next pipe or something else and applies that same type of code, and it continuously works, right? That would be somewhat of a science, right? A repetitious method, and not just a one-off event. That just seems weird, right? So that's how the matrix is, right? You're a being with a language, and you can use that language, numbers and letters, because those are the symbols for language, that you can understand how how reality was created, or I shouldn't say that. I should say how reality storyline has developed over time and things that will happen in the future. Because if you think about the message that came from the Matrix I just saw, go Dave, he winner or gains, it's a prophecy, right? It's talking about the person who code broke it, so it's already planned that I'm going to break the code, or else why is it in there, right? Why would God make this code within these words and then leave it up to me to not find them? Like, oh, maybe Dave will find it, maybe he won't, and if he doesn't, well, I mean, what would be the point, right? So it was just necessary. I was going to find it at some point, and probably that moment I found it, which was the point I found it, and that was planned. Okay, just like everything else is planned based on this code. And so I find the code, and it talks about me doing something. Go Dave, he winner gains. I'm going to have a finish line that's going to be positive for me. And so I go towards that, and I end up finding all these codes and whatever, and I write a book, right? And what I'm trying to figure out, like, where did God come from? I'm still going down that trail, right? But it's leading me into this prophecy, right? All right, so that's the basics of it. I'm really excited to tell people about this because I know I'm right, because I've done it for over 20 years and I put myself to the test. It hasn't been just something I've been like, oh, maybe. But what I'm trying to do is develop a team of people. I mean, an audience is great. I want to teach it. I think humans should know about this code. I think this can leap us into at least our mind working at a more optimal level of understanding our environment, learning some new things, applying it to understand time, to understand our maker, what our maker is, what our maker's intentions really are, right? Because there's a lot of things going on about our maker and what is being talked about our maker that are not true and that are misguided sometimes, and maybe somewhat understood and somewhat not. And some of it is understood. Because, like I said, with the Corey Stats, it does corroborate a lot of information in the Bible. And I believe that lesson is there for me to understand when I go through and I break these, which is explained in the book, that, okay, if it was just all new information, I might be like, I'm not really sure because this doesn't sound right, right? But if there's some stuff that's like, it's right on this, it's in the Bible, you can find it right there. It's right on that, like the main points of stuff in the Bible, like commandments and different things about lying and morality and characteristics of God, things like that. And it's dotted through. It's like, okay, you can grab onto that as pre-knowledge and be like, I'm climbing up a ladder of understanding with some familiarity, and then I'll peak with something new, right? Bang, there's something new. You can trust it or you don't, but it's kind of weird how everything else is there, and that's there, and you can't deny that, right? So it's like that's how the code's working. But thanks for sticking with me. Thanks for watching. If you come back and you watch later after the live video, thanks. Share it. Let people know. I'm not BSing you. You're going to find out in the end if you share this and you tell people and you put some belief into it. I don't say you have to trust me 100%. I'm not trying to lead you down some trail into a desert. I am telling you 100% this matrix that I have found, that I have decoded in all its forms, because it's more than this. Believe me, it's a whole study. This is 500 pages based on, this book, Reality Storyline Decoded, 2 Quarter Stacks, is one category of the study, quarter stacks. There's also fate stacks. There's many other different things. And it's 500 pages, and it's not BS. It's all diagrams and, different things to tell you about what I'm talking about. I'm just trying to show you some pages. It's not BS, man. So tell people, get it out there. Let's expand humanity. Let's take the human mind. Let's see the potential expand. You have one lifetime, one that you know of, even if you believe you go into the afterlife, even if you think you go to heaven or hell or wherever you want to go. It don't matter. You have one chance at this, one time, right? One time, it's like you wake up in the day, you have one day to complete a task. That task is going to multiply your intelligence. That task is going to multiply humanity's movement through time. It's going to exponentiate everything you know and understand and make you see life a different way. Even at the very worst, it'll make you see life at a different way. And maybe you can step back and go, oh, I didn't think about it that way before. And then the nighttime comes and you have to go to sleep because everybody passes away at the end of their life. And then it's over and you don't have that chance no more. And I'm living and I want to make this happen. I want to see this world rock. And I don't want to deal with any more of the stupid crap that people put out there. And I don't want to listen to the hippy dippy shit no more. I want to know what's going on. So one of my basic plans is there's enough people doing it and there's enough people understanding it. Maybe God will be like, oh, well, better go talk to these people. They've really figured things out here, right? Because in my concept, God gave you birth and God gave you death. You can't escape either of them. One has already happened. The next is going to come, right? So you have this one opportunity. You're going to die anyway. Miles, make your life rock, right? Get off the couch. Stop feeding into the BS. Stop being cruel. Stop, lying to people just to get a better, edge on some money in your pocket. Take the world, understand the world like an escape room, and it's your goal to solve the riddle. And that's basically what I did, and I want to teach you what I did, and I want to see other people do it because they're probably going to teach me some things too.